The topic is Ukraine's role in a changing energy environment. The question that it prompts is, what does Ukraine wish for that role to be? As an outsider who has observed Ukraine for 20 to 25 years, it's clear to me that Ukraine has the ability to play a truly important role. The country possesses the intellectual capital, the resource base, and the simple geography to be an important producer, a critical transit state, and an efficient user of energy. Nonetheless, Ukraine today appears to be uncertain about the role that it wishes to play. Some would say that Ukraine has not yet decided on a plan of action that will lead it to a certain role, a particular role on the energy stage. And I'd like to take some time with you this morning to examine some of the elements of this. Will Ukraine be the essential transit country linking upstream producers in Russia and Central Asia to downstream consumers in Europe, thereby serving as a critical linchpin in Europe's energy security? Will Ukraine shake off the legacy of command and control to modernize its energy sector? Will it price energy in a way that will spur both investment and efficient use, providing a reliable underpinning for a diversified and growing economy? Or will Ukraine play a steadily diminishing role on the energy stage? These are, in fact, tough questions. I pose them here in the spirit of a friend of Ukraine and somebody who has a great deal of admiration for the long history that it has gone through and for the challenges that still remain. For my part, I believe that Ukraine can make the choices that will permit it to assume its rightful role as a leading player on the Eurasian energy stage. Ukraine's government has stated that Ukraine is ready to work with international partners such as the United States and the European Union to develop its natural resources, to open its economy, and to ensure its energy independence. Putting these words into action will be the determining factor in Ukraine's energy future. Now, in this, the recent experience of outside parties like the European Union or the United States may offer some instructive examples, but Ukraine's path forward will be unique. It will be its own. Ukraine should determine how it wants to develop its national energy strategy. For our perspective as the U.S. government, we would encourage the idea that it stimulate the more efficient utilization of conventional and unconventional hydrocarbon resources, and that it focus on energy efficiency throughout the system, gradually incorporating renewable energy sources into the country's energy mix. Critically important will be to ensure fair and transparent investment regimes that are available for both domestic and international investors. Ukraine's unconventional resources may include shale gas, which is certainly a topic that is on a lot of people's minds, both in Ukraine, in the United States, and elsewhere at present. In fact, the technologies that have made the shale gas revolution possible here in the United States result in large part from cooperative research and development between public and private entities that was supported initially by the Department of Energy as well as private sector partners. The new technologies that have unlocked the shale gas revolution have resulted from approaches that were not considered to be possible just a couple of decades ago, and they have allowed the development of resources that were not considered commercially viable just a couple of years ago. In particular, though, through hydraulic fracturing and the use of horizontal directional drilling, the United States has truly seen a revolutionary change in its natural gas market, something that those of you who are familiar with energy markets as a whole will understand happens very rarely. Our U.S. Energy Information Administration projects that 45% of U.S. natural gas supply will be met by shale gas by the year 2035. This compares to just 30% in 2011, this year, and just 14% as recently as 2009. So shale gas is already having huge impacts in our energy economy. And the open question is whether this kind of impact can be replicated in other economies around the globe. Indeed, it is possible that Ukraine and other countries in Europe will find commercially viable sources of unconventional gas that could further change the global gas market that we live in today. But should Ukrainians be confident that unconventional gas development will be a game changer in Ukraine, as it has been here? This question is one that requires some fundamental choices by Ukraine. Cutting-edge advancements in the energy sector can have very positive impacts, but they cannot magically fix defects in the underlying investment environment. Fostering and sustaining development of unconventional gas deposits in Ukraine will depend on the existence of a transparent and effective legal and regulatory regime governed by predictable and fair rules of the game. The United States strongly supports Ukraine's efforts to develop its unconventional and conventional energy resources, and exactly for this reason, we strongly encourage energy reforms in Ukraine's energy sector, and reforms indeed in its overall investment environment. Ukraine will attract critical foreign investment if the country can resolve outstanding investment disputes and show to parties both inside and outside that it is open for business. So what are the kinds of signs that investors, both domestic and foreign, will look for to determine whether Ukraine's energy sector is truly open for business? One comparatively easy signal would be for Ukraine to proceed with transparent, well-run tenders for the two first development blocks that have been chosen for development by international energy companies. If such tenders for these production sharing agreements are conducted professionally and transparently in a manner that encourages high-quality bids from high-quality bidders, then serious energy investors will respond very positively. This is, after all, a global energy context where access to resources is fairly constrained. On the other hand, if one sees a repeat of past practices, such as when a previous tender was announced on Christmas Eve and in a manner that was widely understood by experienced industry players as being intended to bring advantage for a single favored bidder, then this will be a very different signal about the role that Ukraine sees itself playing. Let me also note one other signal that investors, energy consumers, neighboring countries, international financiers, and others will watch. And this is a really complicated one. I'm talking about energy price reform in Ukraine. Today's energy pricing, particularly for gas, simply encourages overuse, non-transparency, and even worse types of behaviors. The Ukrainian government has raised some energy prices, and this is an important first step for which they are to be applauded. But continuing to have multiple tiers of pricing for gas simply does not work. Gas that is produced domestically in Ukraine is just as valuable as imported gas. Gas that is consumed by households is gas that isn't available for factories or hospitals or schools. The International Energy Agency has studied energy subsidies worldwide over the last several years, and I would commend their work to any of you in the audience who is interested in this topic. The World Energy Outlook, which has been released over the last several weeks, including just this week here in Washington, focuses in particular on energy subsidies and the effects that they have in terms of demand and in terms of delivering service for poor people in the countries where they are used. Typically, these subsidies are preserved because leaders argue that the population is too poor to pay the full price for fuel or electricity. But in reality, as the IEA has found, subsidies, broad, undifferentiated subsidies, simply make it easier to overuse energy. And the most needy citizens are not even the ones who receive the most benefits from these subsidies. So let me say a few words now about how the United States government is working cooperatively with Ukraine. Our Department of State, and in particular Ambassador Richard Morningstar, lead an energy security working group that is a part of the Strategic Partnership Commission. The Department of Energy takes part in this effort along with other interagency partners. DOE is interested in working with Ukraine to explore the potential for increasing production at its existing upstream operations. For example, DOE has worked with the Ministry of Energy and Coal Industry on an enhanced oil recovery project which would use techniques that have been proven to dramatically increase production at declining and shut-in conventional oil wells. These are techniques that have been applied in Russia and elsewhere across the post-Soviet space with great success. On this effort, DOE is collaborating with the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, the U.S. Export-Import Bank, and the Overseas Private Investment Corporation to fund feasibility studies and, we hope, supply the financing that will be needed to implement an EOR project. The Agency for International Development is working with the government of Ukraine to address the environmental and regulatory aspects of unconventional gas development and production. This cooperation will help ensure that Ukraine is prepared to address and avoid environmental issues that may arise otherwise in the course of shale gas development. USAID is also working on very important efforts in relation to energy efficiency in the heating sector. Their municipal heating reform project is helping to create a financially viable municipal heating system that can deliver reliable and cost-effective services for Ukraine's citizens and for public institutions and local industries alike. This effort is focusing on enhancing the capacity, of municipalities to plan, fund, and manage high-quality heating systems that deliver for the citizens of Ukraine. I would stress that the United States finds energy efficiency to be, a very important part of effective energy policy overall. We have invested in it heavily in this country over the last 35 years in particular, in automobiles, in appliances, in homes, and other industrial settings and others. Energy efficiency standards have yielded huge positive benefits for the American people and for the American economy. For example, today's refrigerators save the nation about $20 billion per year in avoided energy costs. That's about $150 per year for the average American family if one compares against refrigerators of the 1970s. So there's a lot of potential for important benefits. Let me wrap up by returning to the question that I posed at the outset. And I do hope that the candor, the directness here is understood as it is intended, which is as coming from somebody who cares a lot about Ukraine and has a deep respect for the country. What role will Ukraine play in a changing energy environment? That is for Ukraine to decide. The United States hopes that Ukraine will tap the potential, the great potential that lies before it. Ukraine has brainpower, resources, and location on its side. If it is to play the best role that it can in today's energy environment, and we indeed hope that it is on its way to doing that, then Ukraine needs to move in favor of transparency and effective economic signals. It shouldn't place undue hope on technological developments, but look at the investment climate that surrounds it. And if Ukraine does this, then we think indeed that Ukraine will continue to be, and will even more be, a dynamic place to invest and a great place to visit as an interested outsider. Thank you for your attention.